Welcome back. In this video, let's explore the basics of JavaScript objects. Like arrays, objects are another mutable data structure. Also like arrays, objects are collections of data. However, unlike arrays, you're not forced to access items according to an index number. You can collect items under specific names. Let's try this out. Head back to Replit and start fresh. Create an object and store it under the variable name lion, and an object is represented by a pair of curly braces. Right now, lion is an empty object, but let's add data inside by giving the lion some properties. For example, how about a property of name? The property will be set to a string. Let's name this lion Simba. Notice that the property is followed by a colon, so the property of name has a colon right after it. And the value after the colon can be anything. It can be a string, number, it can be an array, or even another object. So let's add another property, age, and set this one to 3, which is actually the age when lions reach adulthood. Finally, as the last line of the file, let's make it the lion object itself. That way, rather than evaluating the declaration statement, the read eval print loop will evaluate the lion object. So go ahead and run, and we get the object printed back in a one-line form. So there's the name of Simba with the age of 3. Excellent. Again, these name data fields within the object are called properties. So there's the name property and the age property. Later in your code, if you want to access one of these properties, you can use the dot notation. For example, we can access lion.name. If you run that, it returns Simba. Likewise, lion.age, when you evaluate that, returns 3. Let me remind you that if you want to automatically run the code, you can use Command Enter on Mac or Control Return or Enter on your Windows machine. As an alternative to the dot notation, you can also use the bracket notation. Instead of lion.age, you can use brackets and then age as a string. Go ahead and run that, and notice that 3 is still evaluated. Cool. Now, the question is, when would you want to use the bracket notation? Now we're seeing two ways to access the properties within the object. First, there's the dot notation, which we saw before, and then there's the bracket notation, which we just saw. When would you want to use this bracket notation, though? The bracket notation is helpful when you don't know a property name ahead of time. For example, say that the property you wanted to access was within another variable. For example, var prop equals the string name. Well, now you can access the relevant name property as it's stored in the variable as the string itself. So lion and then the variable prop within bracket notation will still return Simba. But this doesn't work using the dot notation. If you do lion.prop, it's going to return undefined because it literally tries to find the property name prop within the object. For example, if you set prop to something that actually exists within the lion object, you'll find that it returns the value of that property, which in this case is king. Cool. So to reiterate, the bracket notation, like so, this is useful when you don't know the property you need to access ahead of time, and instead that is stored within the variable. Okay, that wraps up a short introduction to objects. There is so much more to dig into though, because objects are such a huge concept in JavaScript. Even though they're not a primitive value, they're a fundamental data structure in the language nonetheless. Before going in depth with objects though, there's still some basics of the language left to cover. Next, let's go over loops and iteration.